Hello, hello, my beauties and bees, and welcome to another installment of Cryptic Corner, where we explore the unexplained, the supernatural, the paranormal and hidden, the mysterious, the alien, the accursed, and the forbidden. I am your host, Miss Bumblebee, and welcome to the show. We do a lot of cryptozoology stuff here, but we're not strictly cryptozoology. We also enjoy a good ghost story, a good haunting spirit, a demon possession, a alien encounter, and so while cryptozoology is my love and my passion, it has a lot of baggage that comes with it from a lot of other areas of Fortean study, and one of the channels that I've covered before is this Hammerson Peters, right? Hammerson Peters does a lot of videos about Canadian folklore. It started off doing mostly stuff with like Bigfoot and things like that, and more traditional, Bigfoot stories. Like you see all the Bigfoot stories, Curse of Oak Island. But they start to branch out into other areas. We got giant owls. I think we watched that. At least I started watching, you can see. But Thunderbird stories from Canada. And then Beyond the Grave, the Chilling Tales. Now, he does pretty good documentaries. And, a varying length. But today, he's going to take us on an adventure with skeleton spirits of the North, Canada's creepiest legend. So I hope you're on board for this. Good morning, my unfinished journey.
Thorne said.
We need to start at the beginning,
though. Do you know what he looked like when he died?
So, let's start all the way back here.
In his excellent 2024 book, An Anthology of American Strangeness, Volume 1, my friend and fellow researcher Kevin Gould, who has started to publish his own impeccably researched stories in video format on his YouTube channel, American Strangeness, included a chapter on a strange specter.
Oh, let's do that. Let's subscribe to that channel real quick. I can do that. Not that. This one. What was it called? Something Strangeness. Hold on. American Strangeness. Yeah, we'll have to come back around to that. But
in video format on his YouTube channel, American Strangeness, included a chapter on a strange specter said to haunt California's Borrego Badlands in the wake of the California Gold Rush. The first sighting of this desert demon occurred sometime in the 1880s, when a prospector nicknamed Arizona Charlie was searching for gold between California's 17 Palms Oasis and southeasterly Superstition Mountain, beyond the western shores of the Salton Sea. As Kevin put it, something spooked Charlie's burros in the middle of the night, and he got up to quiet them. It was then, through the darkness, and about 200 yards east of where he stood, that Charlie saw an enormous skeleton.
Woo!
Let's
get right into it. I love the stories watching. Oh yeah, this guy was camping. His burrow went crazy, and then boom, giant skeleton. Boom, giant skeleton. I have a couple hats. I'm gonna wear this one to the crawl tonight, but I have a pink one too. So I have this one. Depends on the outfit. This is like my pink pony girl hat. Pink pony girl. But y'all know I'm a gothy bitch.
Figure stood about 8 feet tall and rambled about drunkenly, as if unable or unwilling to keep a straight course. From the midst of its ribcage flickered an eerie light, which Charlie likened to the soft glow of a kerosene lantern. Before he had time to react, Charlie watched the strange creature
I almost forgot to show you guys. This is my new belt that I'm going to be wearing tonight too. Isn't that cool? It matches my necklace. You know, I have the spider necklace. It's kind of like my signature trademark thing. This scorpion matches and it glows the same too. I just remembered I had this and I wanted to show you guys. I gotta put a new hole in it though, because the largest size that they had apparently won't fit around my giant gut. But you know what? I have a nail. I have a nail and we're gonna make it happen.
The ridge and disappear from view. Throughout the succeeding decades, at least 6 other prospectors claim to have encountered the same frightening figure in the Anza Borrego Desert, always apparently wandering aimlessly, as if in search of something. Its path lit by either a lantern clutched by bony fingers, or a weird glow emanating from its latticed thorax.
Hot. He was a 12-foot tall spirit Halloween giant skeleton someone put out there. That'd be great. That'd be fantastic.
Incredibly, the unearthly image of an animated skeleton roaming the wilderness at night is not unique to the folklore of Southern California, but also recurs with surprising frequency in the legends of the Great White North. Undoubtedly, the most famous Canadian iteration of this international folktale is the legend of Corriveau, one of Quebec's spookiest and most beloved ghost stories.
Say it again, Corriveau. It's right there on the bottom there. Corriveau. It almost seems like it has the word Corvid in it.
The tale revolves around the corpse of a French-Canadian woman hanged in 1763 for the murder of her husband, which once dangled from a gibbet at a crossroads on the southern shores of the St. Lawrence River opposite Quebec City. Legend has it that the centerpiece of this grisly display came to life at night to commit all manners of mischief, from harassing passing travelers to consorting with werewolves and warlocks.
Your neighbor has one of those giant spirit Halloween skeletons. Nice.
Corriveau begins in 1749 during the French regime in the tiny rural settlement of Saint-Vallier on the southern banks of the St. Lawrence River near the Ile d'Orléans.
Saint-Vallier?
On November 17th of that year, a 16-year-old...
I'm practicing saying these French words. French is the word. I'm the worst at French. The Borrego Sandman got starved out. Not enough jerky in the desert, right? Well, that's a central theme to these skeletons. They're always very gaunt.
Old French-Canadian girl named Marie-Joseph Corriveau married a 23-year-old farmer named Charles Bouchard. Their union produced 3 children, 2 daughters and a son, before Bouchard's life was tragically cut short by what was initially supposed to be a battle with typhus in the spring of 1760. A little more than a year after the death of her first husband, Marie-Joseph married again, this time to a local farmer named Louis Daudier. On the morning of January 7, 1763, after a year and a half of childless marriage, Daudier was found dead in his barn, apparently having been kicked in the head by his horse. The young widow...
Horses do that from time to time.
...wasted no time in burying her second husband's mutilated remains, leading locals to suspect that she had a hand in his death, and perhaps the untimely demise of her first husband as well. Rumors from Saint-Vallier soon reached the ears of British authorities, the British having governed the region since the conquest of Quebec 3 years prior. A military tribunal held in Quebec City concluded, on the weight of witness testimony, that Marie-Joseph's father, Joseph Corriveau, had murdered his son-in-law. The old man was promptly sentenced to death by hanging. Marie-Joseph was convicted of accomplice to murder, and her cousin, Isabelle Sylvain, was convicted of perjury for...
You want to kick people in the head? Is that what you're telling us, Maya?
...providing testimony which conflicted with the official verdict. While receiving the sacrament of reconciliation in preparation for his execution, Joseph Corriveau confessed to Father Augustin Louis de Glapion, Superior General of the Jesuits in Quebec, that Louis Daudier had actually been murdered by his daughter, Marie-Joseph, and that he had accepted the sentence laid upon him without protest in order to spare her from the gallows. Glapion advised the penitent that it would be sinful to permit...
Would you confess to a murder committed by your child? I think I might. I don't know. Depends on the circumstances, I suppose.
...his niece to unjustly receive punishment for perjury, which entailed public scourging and branding with the letter P, and to allow his daughter to escape the consequence of her crime.
I'm glad we moved away from branding criminals with, like, branding criminals, literally. I mean, it's one thing to be, like, on your clothes or whatever, like, oh, you wear this Scarlet A because you're an adulterer. That's one thing, which is terrible. It's another thing. It's like, oh, I'm going to scarify your body, so because you committed this crime. Holy crap! Shit gets dark.
On the priest's urging, Joseph Corriveau brought his evidence to the British authorities. A retrial was held, during which Marie-Joseph Corriveau was determined to have murdered her husband in bed by splitting his skull with a hatchet. The murderess was sentenced to death and was executed by hanging on April 18, 1763, near the Plains of Abraham, on which the British had won Quebec 3 years prior. Her body was ferried across the St. Lawrence River, placed in an iron cage, and suspended from a scaffold at a crossroads.
Seems a little excessive.
Near Point Levis, as a warning to criminals. As it fell into decay, local rumor grew that La Corriveau.
This is usually what I imagine, like the old situation where where women didn't have their autonomy, so they had to come up with interesting ways to get a marriage, like murdering their husbands. People don't realize how much no-fault divorce saves so many lives. Like, we might not have a Le Corriveau legend at all if Canada had no-fault divorce, where a bitch could have been like, fuck this guy, and got rid of him instead of having to bludgeon him in the head. But sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do.
As the corpse came to be known, came to life at night, and descended from her gibbet to commit unholy deeds, probably owing to a pact that Marie-Joseph had made in life with the devil. Interest in the old legends was revived in 1851, when the cage was accidentally disinterred from its final resting place in unconsecrated ground outside the church graveyard of Saint-Joseph-de-Lévis. Decades later, when a handful of French-Canadian nationalists took it upon themselves to immortalize
John Joseph. Yeah, I gotta show you guys my boots, because I love my boots. I got new boots to go with this outfit. And they got spiders on them. Spiders. And they're cowgirl boots. Yeah, sexy AF. And perfect for me. I lost my vape, so I'm going to be looking for my vape while this guy talks.
Tales of their homeland in literature. The legend of La Corriveau was set down in ink. In his 1863 book, Les Anciens Canadiens, or Old-Time Canadians, Quebecois lawyer Philippe-Joseph Albert de Gaspé described the fictional account of a run-in with La Corriveau, which, though colored by the subtly humorous, tongue-in-cheek dramatic irony that seems to typify French-Canadian conte, succeeds in capturing the essence of the legend. In his book, a traveler tells his companions the tale of his father's encounter with a specter many years earlier, saying in French, "It happened one day that my late father, who is now dead, had left the city for home somewhat late. He had diverted himself a little, so to speak."
Yeah, movie theaters it's like you know how you stream stuff in your living room? It's like that, except for it's at a public place with a bunch of people. That's movie theater. It's weird. It's from like the 20th century kind of retro style. Something holdover from pre-COVID. What drove her to madness if and she actually did it? That's the thing, right? That is the thing. I don't want to speculate she was in an abusive relationship, but yeah, that happens. Surprising how many husbands stopped randomly poisoning themselves.
His acquaintances in Point Levis.
After no-fault divorce. Exactly. And it also keeps us women from having to turn into spooky, scary skeletons in our iron cages hanging at the crossroads. Could you imagine if I had to be hanging in a cage at a crossroads instead of here doing this show for you just because I was being abused by my husband and I poisoned him or murdered him or bludgeoned him or kicked him in the head with a horse?
Like an honest man, he loved his drop, and on his journeys he always carried a flask of brandy in his dogfish satchel. They say the liquor is the milk for old men. It happened that it was quite dark when my father at last got underway. His friends did their best to keep him all night.
You know, the truest stories always start with I was pissed drunk and stumbling through the woods at night in the dark. Those are the best stories and the truest stories.
telling him that he would have to pass, all by himself, the iron cage wherein La Corriveau did penance for having killed her husband. You saw it yourselves, gentlemen, when leaving Point Levis at 1 o'clock. She was quiet then in her cage, the wicked creature, with her eyeless skull. But never you trust to her being blind. She is a cunning one, you had better believe. If she can't see in the daytime, she knows well enough to find her way to torment poor folks at night. Well, as for my late father, who was as brave as his captain's sword, he told his friends that he didn't care, that he didn't owe La Corriveau a farthing, with a heap more reasons which I cannot remember now. He put the whip to his horse, a fine brute that could travel like the wind, and was gone in a second. As he was passing the skeleton, he thought he heard a noise, a sort of wailing, but as a heavy southwest wind was blowing, he made up his mind it was only the gale whistling through the bones of the corpse.
Which is how the undead communicate with the living, through whispers on the winds and electronic voice phenomena, don't you know? But this was before electronic voice phenomena, so La Corriveau is working with what she has. Give a bitch a break. She's stuck in a cage. She doesn't got a lot of resources.
Give him a kind of start, nevertheless, and he took a good pull at the flask to brace himself up. All things considered, however, as he said to himself, Christians should be ready to help each other. Perhaps the
more I find out about La Corriveau, the more I like her. The more I like her, the more appealing she sounds to me. Get it, girl. Don't let the afterlife keep you from living your best life. And don't let these frickin' men cross by without giving you your what do you like? It's like a sacrament or whatever, but yeah.
Poor creature was wanting his prayers. He took off his cap and devoutly recited a De Profundis for her benefit, thinking that, if it didn't do her any good, it could at least do her no harm, and that he himself...
Excuse me, Big Zebra. Not only has Kip Davis confirmed that there are giant skeletons in Canada, he has one right within walking distance of him. He confirmed it. It's there. It stands in his neighbor's driveway, hauntingly. So I don't know what you're talking about. No Canadians believe. This
would be the better for it. Well, then he kept on as fast as he could. But for all that, he heard a queer sound behind him. Tick-tack, tick-tack, like a piece of iron striking on the stones. He thought it was the tire of his wheel, or some piece of the wagon that had come unfastened. He got out to see, but found everything snug. He touched the horse to make up for lost time.
Oh, let's check and see if the sound prompts work. So, the first one I want to try... Okay, so if you do this... There's only a few of them. I'll see if it works. It did! Yeah! And then we have this one.
Whew. Danger, danger, danger. Unbelievable.
That's some Steve Irwin. Danger, danger, danger. And then we have... And you can type these in too in the audience, just so you know. Don't type them in right now because I'm showing them. But the other one we have Howl. And then we have... What else do we have? Oh, yeah. Is it Swarm? One of the classics from that I brought back from before. Let me see. It is... Yeah, Swarm. So, when we get a troll, you can swarm them.
Bees! Bees! Bees everywhere! They're huge and they're sting crazy!
There you go. I hope you guys can hear those. I can hear them. Anyway.
Tick-tack, tick-tack on the stones. Being brave, he didn't pay much attention.
I love your dingo, Jason. You have the cutest dingo. You should bring your dingo to play with our African wild dog. Actually, your dingo's really a dingo. Our African wild dog's just a mutt, but he looked just like an African wild dog when he was a baby, didn't he, Ben?
The storyteller went on to describe how his father proceeded to take a nap on the side of the road at around midnight. Just as he was
As one does at midnight, it's like, you know what? There's a dead body up the road. Supposed to be haunted. It was screaming at me when I drove by. Perfect time to take a nap.
Off, he spotted, out of the corner of his eye, a cluster of weird lights
Love you,
flickering
D.
on the neighboring Ile d'Orléans. Upon closer examination, he discovered that a witch's sabbath, or occult ritual, was being performed on the island by a band of goblins. There he was, dear man, the storyteller said of his father, with his eyes bigger than his head.
I never get invited to that shit. Does that still happen in Canada? I love goblins. I mean, don't get me wrong. If I could party with some goblins, we're going to be fucking partying. Goblins know how to party.
Daring to budge. Presently, he thought he heard behind him the tic-tac, which he had already heard several times on the journey. But he had too much to occupy his attention in front of him to pay much heed to what might pass behind. Suddenly, when he was least expecting it, he felt two great bony hands, like the claws of a great bear, grip him by the shoulders. He turned around horrified and found himself face to face with La Corriveau, who was climbing on his back. She had thrust her hands through the bars of her cage.
Get him, girl! Woo! La Corriveau's my girl. I love you, babe.
And succeeded in clutching him. But the cage was heavy, and at every leap she fell back again to the ground with a hoarse cry, without losing her hold, however, on the shoulders of my late father, who bent under the burden. If he had not held tight to the fence with both hands, he would have been crushed under the weight. My poor late father was so overwhelmed with horror that one might have heard the sweat that rolled off his forehead dropping down on the fence like grains of duckshot.
Was the sweat dripping going tic-tac, tic-tac?
The storyteller described...
I do love me some gargoyles. Ghouls, though, ghouls are kind of gross because they eat dead bodies. They eat like corpses out of the ground. I mean, that's what it takes to be a ghoul. But I'm not trying to say there's anything wrong with ghouls per se. I'm just trying to say that me personally, I would not want to make out with somebody who had just eaten a rotten corpse. But I would make out with a goblin or a gargoyle. I may have made out with a gargoyle. I'm not going to answer any more questions about that, though.
How the skeleton asked his late father to carry her across the St. Lawrence so that she could dance with her friends on the Ile d'Orléans, as she was unable to cross the consecrated waters of the St. Lawrence without the assistance of a Christian. When the man refused, the Corriveau proceeded to strangle him.
Take the girl to see her friends. Jesus Christ. This is you know, if they had Uber. Does Canada even have Uber? Does Canada have Uber? Because she could just get an Uber to go dance with her friends. She just have to. Can you request a Christian driver on Uber? I don't think you can. Let me look. Actually, you know what we'll do? We'll Google it. Can you request a Christian driver on Uber? No, you cannot request a specific driver based on religion on Uber. Well, how about Lyft then? No, Lyft does not allow riders to specify requests of drivers based on their religion. Damn it, Le Corriveau needs a Christian to get her across the river, and this guy's not being any help at all. Do I have any Christians in the audience that can go pick her up? I know I have some Canadians. She just wants to get over to a party her friends are having across the river. She doesn't have a ride. Like, hit me up if you'll be able to give my friend her. You won't miss her when you go pick her up. She's a skeleton in a cage. So yeah.
Him until he fell unconscious. He woke up the next morning lying in a ditch. The Corriveau was back in her gibbet, inanimate once more, swaying softly in the breeze. At this, the storyteller concluded. He picked up his...
Sounds like she didn't get to go to the party because he was a dick to her. Just be cool. Can you just be cool with Le Corriveau and be like, babe, let me just take you over to your goblin friends. And then y'all leave me alone. I'll go on continue my journey. But no. he had to be a jerk about it. Now she's back in her cage. She's probably like pretty upset and pretty sad about the whole turn of events. Damn, I'm sexy. Look at that. Oh. But, you know, what can you do? She asked for a ride and he said no. But when I die, presumably I will be put in a cage similar to this, because I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm sure it's going to be epic. Epic enough to be publicly executed. So, when I become a skeleton ghost and I need a ride across the river to go visit the goblins, what are y'all going to say? Are you going to give me a ride? I'm going to do a poll. We'll do a poll right now. All right, there's the poll, so you all can decide.
His courage, and stretched out his hand to take a drink. But no such luck. The flask was empty. The witch had drained every drop.
All right.
Although La Corriveau was perhaps the most famous animated...
We're moving on from the Corriveau to the doppelganger of Carsdale, Nova Scotia, which does not... So far, I'm a La Corriveau stan. I would love to have, like... She sounds badass and like an amazing ghost. I would love to have like a poster or like a little sculpture of her or something. What I really need, though, is a Baphomet. I don't have a Baphomet sculpture, which I would like to have for my altar thing back here. Got aliens and stuff on it right now. But only 17% of y'all are saying no to giving me a ride to the goblin party. I hope if I go to the goblin party, maybe Corriveau will be there and we can hang out. And maybe we'll hit it off. Maybe we'll vibe. What do you think? You think we could vibe? She killed 2 husbands, but she hasn't had a mommy yet. A gibbet ghost. Gibbet, that's the word I was looking for. I'll be putting a gibbet. Do you want to put me in the gibbet? All right, let me see what's going on in the chat before we get into this next topic, okay? I don't want to, I just want to hide the poll there. Okay. Let's see. Because that pretty much sums me up. A skeleton in a cage. Yeah, you could pull it off. Can I request a driver that has a dog and cat? That'd be great, wouldn't it? Yeah. Let's see. Anything else I missed? Love starting out the day with a big Z energy. Yeah, good deal. How to rule an asteroid. I'm in. Don't. Oh, okay. Are we planning a trip? I've been feisty all week. Being a bitch is my only outlet. I hear ya. Are you stirring shit, Maya? Good. Keep it up. I'll ride you. I mean, give you a... Oh, Ryan. Are you going cow tipping, Kip? We used to try to do that when we were kids. The cows would always wake up and run from us, though. The Canadian goblins offer free glow-in-the-dark condoms. Hell yeah. It is a time for writing our righteous anger, honestly. I want a Baffy statue. I know, right? They're so cute. Have a great rest of the show, folks. Love you all. Would give Bree a ride if I could. Oh, are you bouncing, Asteroid? Have a good weekend. I'm going to the pub crawl tonight, so woo! It'll be fun. Am I all caught up? Yeah. No, I'm queen. Maya is a goddess. I'm the queen. And if we combine together, we're the queen goddess. Yeah, cow tipping's a myth. It's not actually something you can actually do. Yeah, I mean, well, in the way that Big Zebra is talking about it, you can give the cow a tip. Like, they don't usually want money, though, but if you have, like, an apple or something, they'll be, like, thrilled about that. They like sweet stuff. I'm a Midwestern girl, and oh, yes, you can. I mean, no, you're right. Definitely cannot. Yeah, Maya and me are from, we actually grew up in the same part of the country, in the same little 500-mile circle in the middle of the U.S., between cornfields and little patches of forest and lots of rivers, because the Mississippi runs right through the middle of that circle. Good morning.
Skeleton to prowl the shadowy byways of Canadian folklore. It is but one of many traditions which span the country, stretching from the Maritimes of eastern Canada to Vancouver Island at the country's western end. Nova Scotian folklorist Helen Craig...
Someone else tried to do the woo command. It's exclamation point WOL. I want to see if it works for if it works for everybody. Somebody do. I just don't want the music to be playing, but yeah, I give you permission to do the woo sound. It's the X-File theme or whatever, but I kind of want to see if it'll trigger the algorithm to say, hey, this is copyrighted music. It's really short though, and it's somebody's cover of it. But yeah, I don't care who does it. Just somebody type in. There you go. Thank you, Fox. It did work. Look at that. 62% of you all would give me a ride to the Goblin Party across the river. 25% of you are already at the Goblin Party. So with my chat right now, well, a couple people dropped off. It was sitting right around 24. So with about, if we're doing, that means that 6 of you are already at the Goblin Party. Did you save me a spot? I don't want to sit. I don't know. Maya's probably already there. Yeah.
Creighton included one such story in her 1957 classic, Blue-Nosed Ghosts. Creighton heard this chilling tale firsthand from a man named A.B. Thorne, who hailed from the settlement of Carsdale, near the western coast of the Nova Scotian Peninsula, on the Annapolis Basin, near the ancient settlement of Annapolis Royal. Mr. Thorne is a man of medium height, Creighton began, with blue eyes, an aquiline nose, and a rather sensitive mouth. Now probably in his 60s, he can still dig a garden or ditch in a way that would shame many a younger man. Yet with work to occupy him, and an excellent wife to take care of all his needs, he appears to be a singularly nervous man. This is little wonder, considering the experience of his youth which we had come to hear.
So he's got like a... what I'm getting here is a Ichabod Crane kind of vibe from him, like a nervous person. Okay, so we got Ichabod Crane character.
Proceeded to repeat Thorne's tale verbatim, related to her and her friend, poet Martha Banning Thomas, in the Thorne family cottage in the summer of 1947. Thorne explained that, when he was a young man, he had a good friend named Joe Holmes, with whom he spent much of his free time. Although Joe had distinguished himself as an exceptionally swift runner, he had a meager frame and a delicate constitution, which inclined
most fast runners do have a meager frame. I weighed, for most of my life, I weighed less than 130 pounds, and I was fast as a fucking deer. And over a long distance, too. I could run. I was just showing this off to my roommates earlier because it popped up on my feed. Up until I was about 35, I was easily doing an 8-minute mile without pushing myself too hard. I can't do an 8-minute mile anymore, but I probably could if I trained. But I'm lazy, and I like coffee, and I like weed, and I like junk food. So that makes it hard for me to get back into that runner build now that my metabolism is slowed down. But I am lean enough to outrun a skeleton, maybe. But I'm more lean enough to become a skeleton. This is why, when I was a kid, I started learning archery. Because nobody wants to be undead skeleton infantry. No, you do not want to be a skeleton foot soldier. Skeleton foot soldiers are weak as fuck. They go down in one hit, generally, and they have a lot of plus weaknesses to like bludgeoning damage. Anything that has a bonus +1 to the undead or anything like that. Skeleton infantry going down. They're just whoosh, you can like crumble a whole unit of them coming at you with like a single spell. Skeleton archers, though. Skeleton archers have that ranged attack distance, right? They have, for whatever reason, because of their arcane nature, they have immaculate aim. They're out of range of most melee combat bludgeoning weapons, which have a higher damage to the undead. So, yeah, you stand back, you fire arrows, you're undead. You don't have to even worry about your ability to aim, your stats on your any of that stuff because it's all arcane. Anyway, that's just my thoughts on it. Skeleton archers.
The illness. One evening,
But that, of course, was before I knew I could be in a what was that thing called, a gibbet? I could be a evil woman ghost in a gibbet floating around. That sounds way cooler even than being the skeleton archer. Although, if I could optimally be anything, I'd be a lich queen, right? Like an arcane skeleton. Who's making weapons for these skeletons? I assume a skeleton archer can pull 2 of their ribs off and just go, and then like some sinew, and just fire.
In the early 1900s, when the two of them were about 20 years old, Holmes accompanied Thorne to a farmhouse, which lay between their 2 homes. This house, the residence of the Riordan family, served as a local post office, such arrangements being customary in rural Nova Scotia in those days.
That sounds like an achievable undead goal to me, Sumami. You follow your dream. You get those horses and scimitars. Are they going to be skeleton horses or regular horses?
And Thorne had to mail a letter. By the time the business was concluded, it was about 10 o'clock. It was a bright night with a full moon, Thorne said, and it was too nice to separate and go home so early. The Riordan's grass was about 3 feet high at that time, and there was a turnip field behind it. We heard a hoe strike against a rock, and it attracted our attention.
What you be striking against a rock for? Ho, you know who I'm talking to. Why are you striking that rock?
We sat forward then and looked, and to our surprise, we saw a thing come crawling on its hands and feet from the southeast corner of the house.
Fuck yeah!
Then it stood up, and we could see it was a man. We were on the lower or south side of the road, and it was on the upper or north side.
Fuck yeah!
Then it went out of sight. In the country, we often think a lot without saying anything, and anyways, there's often no need of
flaming skeleton horses? Hell yeah! Let's make that a thing.
Words between friends. So we just sat there and didn't say anything, and before long it came out again. We didn't move an inch, but we watched, and this time it came halfway across the road. The strange creature once again retreated to the corner of the house, then repeated its performance a third time, coming to a standstill beneath a cherry tree on the other side of the road. The specter watched the friends in silence, its features obscured by shadow, and the friends stared right back.
It's a skeleton man!
At the height of this eerie showdown, a handful of apple trees on the friend's side of the road
It's like a gaunt man. Yeah, basically.
trembled violently, as if shaken by invisible hands, loosing a cascade of apples, which thudded in the grass. Now thoroughly spooked, the 2 friends mutually agreed to head to Holmes' house, and took off down the road at a run. Although Holmes was the faster of the 2, Thorne managed to keep up, spurred by the terrifying prospect of being left behind with the mysterious figure. When we got to his house, we stood in the road and talked, Thorne said. We were young men and curious, and we didn't like to leave it there, because of
Curious. They were young men and they were curious. And they were just experimenting alone in the woods together. This is the Nova Scotia version of Brokeback Mountain.
it would always pester us, and we'd never know what we'd seen. It didn't seem like a prank, but if it was, we wanted to settle it. Finally, I said, Let's go back. I'm not afraid. I wasn't either, so long as Joe was with me. Nothing was going to hurt the two of us, and besides, it's easy to be brave when you have company. We'll see what it is, I said. So we walked back, and pretty soon we saw it, and it was coming to meet us. I said, there it is. Don't leave me. As I said, I figured that with the two of us it couldn't do much harm, and I wanted to find out what it was.
He says, y'all got any more of that crack?
I meant to touch it, and then I'd know for sure if it was real. When we were within 20 feet of it, I said again, Joe, don't leave me. And then I walked up, till my face...
Joe, don't leave me. I'm so scared of the skinny man. Protect me, Joe. Please, Joe. By the way, I did my Morticia Addams look this morning, in case you didn't notice. Not with my hair. Obviously, my hair is blonde, but my makeup, I did Morticia. I hope it looks cute.
Face was close beside it. I'll never forget that moment as long as I live. It had on black pants, a white shirt with a hard bosom front, and black braces. Its head was bare, and he was of medium size. It looked as though its eyes were deeply sunk in, and they were very bright and penetrating, and the only thing it looked like was a skeleton. I didn't touch it, although I would have...
Generally, skeletons don't have eyes, though, so that's a difference.
Even then. But Joe gave a scream and ran, and I was scared.
Fucking Joe!
I wasn't long overtaking
Get it together, Joe, you...
him, and from that time, Joe had a hard time to keep up with me. It followed, and kept 20 feet behind us. There were bars on the home's fence.
And when I say Morticia Addams, I should specify it's the Angelica Houston version of Morticia Addams. Just my face, with my eye makeup and my lipstick and stuff.
We jumped them, and the thing cut across the field to head us off, but we got there first. The two friends reached the safety of the farmhouse and stood panting in the doorway. They watched in
Your mom was filmed in Alberta, Big Zebra.
horror as the apparition, apparently unwilling to violate the sanctity of the home, climbed atop a rotten pole which jutted out from a stone wall nearby and perched itself there, staring intently at the two men without saying a word. In the morning, Thorne said, I went out and felt that pole, and do you know, it was so rotten, it just crumbled up in my hands. Why, that pole was so rotten it couldn't have held a bird. Thorne went on to relate how, 1 year after the strange adventure, Joe fell ill with laryngeal tuberculosis, a condition which left his mind clear and rational, but caused his throat terrible pain.
Oh, so it looks like they don't have eyes, but they really have big black eyes, is what Maya's explaining to us. I get it. That makes sense. By the way, if you can afford to visit Banff, it's an amazing place. I'll take your word for it.
At the end of his illness, when the pain became almost too much for him to bear, Holmes claimed that he was visited by the same skeletal apparition that he and Thorne had encountered 1 year earlier. The frightening figure massaged the dying man's throat, immediately relieving him of pain. Several days later, Holmes succumbed to his illness. I sat up with him every night, Thorne said. And do you know what he looked like when he died? He looked just like that man. He was pretty well wasted away. As Thorne himself surmised at the end of his narrative, the skeletal figure that he and his friend encountered appeared to be a forerunner, an omen of impending disaster, common in maritime folklore.
I love that one. I love that one. He was seeing himself wasted away from the disease. Full circle. That one I did not see that coming. Thank you.
The forerunner evokes the old German legend of the doppelganger, an apparition of a living person, portending the demise of the unfortunate whom it resembles.
Should we do a whole episode on doppelgangers? I should add that to the poll at some point. Doppelgangers. That's a good topic because there's a lot of folklore about that and a lot of actual sightings and stories and stuff where you see yourself.
Which, in this case, appeared to be a vision of Holmes' future self at the moment of his death.
Why is Bugbot still talking about Saint Germain? Get your shit together, Bugbot. It's
West
not
of the
my
Maritimes,
fault that you were
in the Canadian
behind.
shield of what is now Northern Ontario,
I take no
the Anishinaabe Nations.
I take no responsibility for anything. No, it's my fault. What is the timers? So cryptic question will be, it's obviously going to be, do spooky, scary skeletons send shivers down your spine? Do they? And then we'll change that one too. Yeah, there we go. I was just so preoccupied with doing the sound commands this morning that I totally forgot about changing up the timers about the topics today.
Tell campfire stories of an entity called the Pagak, an animated skeleton which in physical appearance, behavior, and symbolic significance strongly resembles the doppelganger described by Helen Creighton. One nation whose traditional stories on the subject have been recorded for posterity.
And this seems to be largely like eastern to central Canada, where these stories are coming from. Just that's the region that the folklore seems to emerge from. Yeah, I love folklore, Victoria.
Is the Algonquin of Lake Temiskaming, the latter being a northerly augmentation of the Ottawa River.
That's what cryptozoology really is. It's the cross section between folklore and zoology, right? And sometimes, to an extent, mythology, but yeah, it's mostly the cross section between folklore and zoology,
which straddles the border of Ontario and Quebec. In a 1915 anthropological paper for the Canadian Department of Mines, American anthropologist Frank Goldsmith Speck wrote that the Temiskaming Algonquin regarded the Pagak as a creature of bones, a skeleton that clatters through the forest, making a great rattling and squeaking noise. When this is heard, it is
What if you oil him? Could you oil him and stop the squeaking at least?
understood as an omen that some friend will be lost. Pagak is accounted for by the story of a hunter who got starved out in the bush. Before he died, he wished that his life and the strength of his flesh might be transferred to his bones. He got his wish, and his strength went into his bones when his flesh...
Can I make that wish too? I want to be a vengeful skeleton spirit when I die. If there's an afterlife and I don't just get to not be anymore, which sounds optimal. I mean, other than potentially maybe floating into the dark void, which sounds very soothing to a bitch that gets migraines a couple times a month. But floating into the void with my migraines, into that sweet velvety darkness doesn't sound that bad. But if I have to have a interactive afterlife, why can't I be a freaking spooky, scary skeleton haunting the streets of... Well, I could do El Paso. I'm in El Paso right now. I could haunt the streets of El Paso, wreaking vengeance. Just give me a chance, powers that be.
Fell away. Whenever he wished, he could fly through the air as though on wings.
And if you're a spooky, scary skeleton spirit, you can fly. That's another bonus. Being able to fly is...
Southwest of Lake Temiskaming lies Lake Temagami, the historic homeland of the Temagami Ojibwe, who also believed in the Pagak. Speck recorded these people's interpretation of the entity in his aforementioned treatise, writing, "This is a personification of a human skeleton without the flesh, which wanders about the country. When he travels, he goes as fast as he thinks. When he wishes himself to be in a place, he is there as soon as he thinks of it. When he is heard by the people, it is a sign that someone will die. It is thought that he is heard occasionally 3 times in succession, making his peculiar noise, once at the horizon."
Is it the sound of xylophones? I wish I had a xylophone to play while we watch this. Spooky, scary skeletons and shivers down my spine. Maybe that's the sound that follows him around. Maybe it's that song, Spooky, Scary Skeletons. I've had it stuck in my head the whole time since I've been working on this video and doing research for this video. I cannot drop it. Spooky, Scary Skeletons. It's in my head.
Once at the zenith, and again at the opposite horizon. Anthropologists Sister Bernard Coleman, Ellen Frogner, and Estelle Ike elaborated on the Ojibwe conception of what they called the Pagak in their 1962 book,
did you say?
Ojibwe Myths and Legends.
Hold on.
The Pagak used in their 19er and Estelle Horizon. Anthropologist Sister Bernard Coleman, Ellen Frogner, and Estelle Ike.
So I thought I misheard that because he said Bernard Coleman, which, like, if you're a cryptozoology person like me, a cryptozoologist, then you know, like, Bernard Hoovelman is the father of cryptozoology, and then Lauren Coleman is like currently the world's most famous cryptozoologist, probably. He runs the Cryptozoology Museum in Maine. So I thought the person was, like, combining their names to make somebody named Bernard Coleman, but apparently it's a real person. My bad. Good morning, PC. Good morning, TS. Christine Slays. Good morning, good morning.
Elaborated on the Ojibwe conception of what they called the Pagak in their 1962 book, Ojibwe Myths and Legends, writing, "The Pagak used to wander restlessly in the woods as a skeleton, sometimes a flying skeleton. He was a sign of bad luck to anyone who saw him." One woman spoke of how, with the coming of spring, the Indians kept very quiet and listened for the Pagak in the woods. They would hear him shoot, for he was a hunter, or
he had a gun.
His bones make a noise.
Where'd he get his gun at, yo? They knew about guns before, or the Pagak knew about guns before white people came around. Bro's packing. If I was a spooky, scary skeleton flying around the forest, I think a gun would be the last thing I needed, right? What are they going to do, shoot me? They're going to shoot me? I guess he's a hunter. What's he hunting for, though? Because he got a stomach. Is he going to eat? Maybe he eats the spirit of the animal he shoots. Like when he shoots the deer and then its ghost rises up out of the body. That's when he does his thing. He sucks the soul out of the deer. I don't have any idea.
Noise as he walked. Generally, he was spoken of as a skeleton of a human being, although one person described him as monster-like in appearance. More than 1,000 kilometers.
Being a skeleton of a human being is pretty monster-like too, all things considered.
Northwest of Lake Temagami, in the remote lake-ridden wilds of northwest Ontario, lies Sandy Lake, home to an Ojibwe First Nation, whose flying skeleton stories appear in anthropologist James R. Stevens' 1995 book, Sacred Legends. In one
Fucking flying skeletons! Hell yes! Can we start a band called Bumblebee and the Flying Skeletons? Am I butchering your name? Is it Christine? Christian? I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm trying, babe. T.S. Christian Slays. I don't know. Phonetically spell it out for me, and I'll try to get it right from here on out. But good morning. Good morning, Hive and all my fam. We're doing spooky, scary skeletons.
Tales which Stevens reproduced. A luckless hunter named Tomaton was searching for game in the forest one winter day when he heard a strange whispering on the wind. As it sounded like someone calling his name, Stevens wrote, he went into the forest to investigate. He had not gone far when he saw a human skeleton caught on the branch of a small birch tree.
Aww.
"Free me, Tomaton," the skeleton cried. The Indian wanted to run away because he was very frightened.
Dude, Tomaton, be decent. Be a Christian. Alright, yeah. Tomaton, though. Tomaton, you need to be a decent person and let this flying skeleton go. Because if you do, you might get some wishes or some shit. I don't know.
But he was afraid to run away, so he gathered all his courage and lifted the skeleton off the branch. The skeleton then flew into the air, crying, "I am Pagak, the flying skeleton. You, Tomaton, are a very courageous Indian, and will be blessed with good hunting and a long life."
Hell yeah!
Then Pagak became invisible and flew.
Pagak, come see me. Come see Bree. I'm just checking something. My lips are looking a little weird. There's a spot on it that I don't like. So I fixed it. And we're good now. Yes. Actually, I don't know if I want to be Pagak or I want to be with Pagak. Maybe I will be, what was her name again? The Corriveau. No, it's a 2, 6. Le Corriveau, yeah. I'll be Le Corriveau, and me and Pagak will hook up.
Life. Then Pagak became invisible and flew off into the stormy winter sky.
Bye,
Tomaton sat
Pagak.
down and smoked a tobacco offering to his guarding spirit, Pagak, the flying skeleton. From this day on, the hunter was always successful in his hunting and trapping. The legend of the flying skeleton can be found further to the west, in the boreal forests of northern Saskatchewan, the historic domain of the Woodland Cree. Fur trader George Nelson, who managed the Hudson's Bay Company post at Lac La Ronge,
George Nelson
described the Woodland Cree conception of the entity in a letter to his father, written in April 1823. Nelson's native clients described the figure as the ghost of one who died in a state of emaciation, from either starvation or tuberculosis, which appears in the form of a skeleton with skin. At the time the letter was written,
This does sound like the appearance does sound a lot like the traditional appearance of a Wendigo too, right? Right? I mean,
Nelson was playing host to a sick Indian who claimed to have had several frightening encounters with these entities. The first incident, the native explained, took place on a spring night several years prior, when he took his canoe out into Lac La Ronge to hunt moose. He paddled over to a shallow part of the lake, tied his craft to a clump of rushes so that it would not drift away, and waited quietly, hoping to hear the bellowing of a bull
cough,
moose.
cough, cough. Yeah.
While he waited, the native discerned a strange sound in the distance, directly ahead of him. The sound resembled a human voice, crying, "Hey, hey, hey," in rapid succession, its tone oddly cold and...
Excuse me. This really sounds like a Wendigo to me. The time to go is now. When someone says Wendigo. I just made like a pun about Wendigo. The time to go is now.
monotonous. The hairs of his neck stood on end as the noise drifted directly towards him, as if it were floating on the air. Terrified, the native laid low in his canoe, too frightened to hazard a glance in the direction of the unearthly voice, which was now fast approaching. Despite this precaution, the aerial vociferant flew straight up to the canoe.
Someone just shut Kip Davis down. What did you say, Kip? Saskatchewan sealskin. Oh. I don't know what that even means, but somebody was offended by it. I think that might have been an accident. Listen, I know everyone hates ChatGPT, but it gives me good details about how to legally go about giving inherited property back to First Nations groups, and it's making me very happy. Yeah. I tried to see if ChatGPT could... ChatGPT, it knows about me. Like, if I ask it about Hive, it knows me. It knows my name's Bree McCune. It knows I go by Bumblebee. It knows all kinds of crazy shit about me that was wild. It knows about the thing that was wild about it that I really was surprised was that it knows about Vandy. It knows about Dr. Tapioca Weasel. It knows that Dr. Tapioca Weasel, the handle on YouTube, is Dr. Michael Vandergraaf, and that he's related to the Vandergraaf generator. It literally knows that. It also knows that he collaborates with Kip Davis. But it did not believe me when I told it the ChatGPT that Kip Davis told me that Dr. Tapioca Weasel eats babies. I said, is it true that Dr. Tapioca Weasel eats babies? It's like, no. Dr. Tapioca Weasel, a.k.a. Dr. Michael Vandergraaf, does not eat babies. Kip Davis would have no way to... Like, it got really mad about Kip, the prospect of Kip saying that. And it knows who Kip is, too. It's like, oh, yeah, Kip Davis, the biblical scholar of the Old Testament, who has no expertise in criminal activity. Or it was really wild. It was funny. Yeah, the ChatGPT does know who Vandy is. It knows who you are too, Maya. And it knows we collaborate. It does, and it knows that you don't like Bob Price. It really wanted to talk about that too. I kept trying to get it to talk about me, and it kept wanting to go back to talking about that I collaborated with you, and you don't like Bob Price. It was so funny.
And threw the Indian into the lake. Choking and sputtering, the hunter scrambled for the shore, hounded all the while by the mysterious chanter, which hovered directly above his head, crying its metronomic incantation. Then I took some dry grass, the Indian told Nelson, which I rubbed and bruised.
Oh, I want to be clear. This isn't like a Chat GPT conversation that I sculpted by describing my friends to it. I ask it to. I ask it about you. I don't talk about you to it. It's like I ask it like, does Hive Science collaborate with Maya Atkinson? And it'll go look it up and then talk about it and then put up a paragraph about us. Yeah. Well, I mean, I've never actually heard Vandy come out and say, I don't eat babies. Yeah, it has access to the thing. What the upgrade that gave us this accessibility is that ChatGPT now has access to the YouTube transcripts of our conversations. That's where it's getting that information at. It now can go if you mention a channel name or a person who has a channel or a presence. It can actually go in and find. Yeah, it does agree Bob Price is a bigot, but it could actually go in and find the transcripts of the conversations that we had and use those to answer questions. It's freaking nuts. Like our conversations, like this, you could get you could pull up a transcript of this show, and it will tell you about us. It's very invasive. Maya is the most high. I've seen Maya pretty high. I've seen Maya tip over the edge on getting high. So we got to regulate our goddess's consumption if she's going to be getting high.
It became soft, and put it under my armpits, and crumpled myself into a small heap, and remained till the sun began to warm. All night long.
Where does this rumor start that Vandy is tall? That Vandy's a giant? I have had Vandy in my bedroom. Okay, I promise you, he's about this big. I could, if he would have let me, he wouldn't even let me pick him up. But I could have put him in my pocket. He's so small. I have a video of it. You can go look at it on my channel. He's only, but I want to say like 9 or 10 inches tall. About this big. He's a little bitty guy. I did not try to kill you. I may be the most high, but Maya is the goddess, says PC. That's true. Yeah, he's full grown. He's just little. He's like a little pocket-sized guy. Yeah. I had to get I had a chair next to me. I had to get like a stack of books. And he'd sit on it. I don't know where this rumor. Oh, gift membership. You got your own membership. Kristen, welcome to the Hive. You're green now, which means that you can do Bigfoot prints. I lie a lot. I'm a professional liar. Yeah. Well, I'm a shill for covering up NASA and for evolution, for the Smithsonian. The Smithsonian is where I get most of my shill money at, because I spent a lot of time debunking the claims about them having giant skeletons and stuff in their basements. You know. Yeah.
Long, the chanter hovered above the Indian, maintaining its incessant cry, before finally departing at dawn.
Woo! We got Bigfoot.
The native's second encounter with such an entity took place while he was hunting beaver with a friend.
Now I want to clarify with the Vandy thing. I don't know, because there might have been more than one, because they were moving around really fast in my room. So I'd see him up on this shelf, then he'd be over here sitting on the corner of my bed, and then he was just everywhere. So there may have been more than one. I'm not sure, but we did play the Ouija board.
Ventured far from camp, and after killing 6 beavers, built a roaring fire, and decided to sleep under the stars. I awoke in the night.
Are you out there in Chat GPT asking about yourself, Maya? Well, what is that, a conspiracy thing? Giant skeletons in a basement is one of the Smithsonian museums. Yes, that's the conspiracy. Like the Lovelock Cave giants, the Ohio Mound giants, all these alleged giants and other things that were found during the late 19th century and reported on these newspapers. They were just like frontier tales. Oh. Oh, yeah. It does agree. It does agree that Bob Price is trash. But I digress. I'm getting off track now. But yes, there are allegedly giant skeletons hidden in the Smithsonian. All these archaeological finds. Young Earth creationists like to cite that a lot. That they find these giants and dinosaur and man things that live together, and then they go and hide them in the basement of the Smithsonian. So the Smithsonian pays me as a shill to come out here and say, that's nonsense. And then be like, look, giant skeletons are just mythology, and do a show like this where I like poo-poo it. And I'm like, no, giant skeletons are silly. It's to throw you all off of looking into the Smithsonian and finding the giant skeletons in the basement. You're welcome, Smithsonian.
The Indian told Nelson, and was much astonished to observe a man seated on the opposite side of the fire, resting his head on both hands, with his elbows on his knees.
I think the theory, AR, about Dr. Tapioca Weasel is that there's three. It's three weasels in a trench coat. Yeah.
Apparently in a very pensive, sullen manner. He had but skin and bone, not the least particle of flesh, and this one had hair on his bony head. I gently pushed my friend and told him to look at that stranger. We were both extremely agitated in consequence of our fear, and were at a loss what to do. Having no alternative, I arose. Conceiving that he came to ask for something to eat, I took a beaver, cut it in two, and presented him the half of it. He did not deign to look at it.
Wow, Patty, I never even thought about that. Identified emotionally abusive behavior. I'd like to do that to regulate myself, too. I don't want to be doing stuff that's emotionally abusive. And sometimes, I may, like when I'm having an emotional reaction, I may react in a way that could be abusive if I didn't know the way that it was being perceived and the way that our interaction was going to be that way. I don't want to be abusive and do abusive behavior. So to be able to identify my own behaviors, do better for myself, and then expect better from others is an excellent goal. So I never thought about using it for that. I'm doing a charity stream later this week for the Trans Housing Network. Next weekend on Twitch, if anyone wanna, just saying. So, Kristen, I also, and I was supposed to invite Maya last night too. We had kind of a full house, but Patty was there. But Maya, if you want to join us for trivia next Friday night on Dr. Biden's show, if you want to pencil that into your schedule, yeah, we can make that a thing. Ben really wants you to come hang out. So look forward to chatting with you on that. Now, Kristen, yeah, do you know about the transpositions? Because maybe we could help with a charity drive over on the transpositions. You're in the Discord server. Message me and and let me know the details about your charity drive, and I'll see if we can't maybe promote it on the transpositions for you. But that got me thinking about collaborating with Maya, and then, which I'm going to be doing tomorrow. I'm going to be on Bad Science Sunday tomorrow with Doc Dino, right? I hope so. That's what I got written down. Oh, it's not like regular trivia. It's like we play beer, bud, or band. It's B, or B, where there's a name of something, and you got to decide whether it's the name of a beer, the name of a band, or the name of a bud, like marijuana. and it's harder than it sounds. It is so hard. Patty played last night. It's hard, isn't it? I mean, I kick ass at it, but that's because I've got lots of practice. But and I look at a lot of weed menus. The ones that are hardest for me are the beer, actually.
I was much afraid. I then bethought of cutting it into mouthfuls, which, after presenting him, I threw into the fire. Thus I did with the whole, and when done, he arose and walked off peaceably in the air.
So, if you didn't follow that story, because I kept cutting it off to ramble at the side chat, the guy woke up, and there was a skinny dude, like a gaunt, skinny, skeletal dude, sitting by his fire. And he was like, hey, maybe he's hungry. So he got up and gave him half a beaver to eat. And he didn't want it. So he cut it up into little pieces for him to eat. And he didn't want it. So then he threw the little pieces into the fire. So he wasted like a whole half a beaver. And then the dude just got up and walked away. Didn't say anything. Yeah, he was lurking. Yeah, he was lurking. So he's like Kristen. Kristen, are you a spooky, scary skeleton? You can tell us. We won't judge you. The tribe I'm in contact with actually talks about little people. Yeah, like Vandy's people. The little Vandy guys. The little Vandergraafs. Mm-hmm. They're actually, the little ones are called micrographs. They're not Vandygraphs. When they combine together, they're Vandygraphs.
The natives' third encounter took place on the night of March 31st, 1823, several days before Nelson wrote his letter. At a late hour in the night, Nelson wrote, he was pulled most violently out of his bed, so that his wife that was lying beside him awoke, and with difficulty kept him down. Shortly thereafter, the cabin in which a couple were sleeping shook violently.
I saw the moon and I couldn't control myself. Werewolf. Whew. Vandy's a troll. I think she's talking about actual people. Vandy's a troll. Okay. Little people today. Yeah, we have the Nimmergen are the Native American little people of the Rockies. But you're east of the Appalachians, aren't you, Native atheists? You don't have to tell us where you are, but are you east of the Appalachians? Because I'm trying to figure out would it be like a Pukwudgie kind of deal? Let me know.
Later on in his letter, Nelson described an elaborate ritual by which the Cree attempted to protect themselves from the vexations of these skeletal ghosts, which involved tobacco smoking, speech-making, dancing, incantations, and offering bowls of grease to a wooden figure intended to represent the spirit in question. Further to the south, the Woodland Cree's prairie-dwelling cousins, the Plains Cree, have their own stories involving skeletal apparitions, some of which appear in American linguist Leonard Bloomfield's 1934 book, Plains Cree Texts. In one of Bloomfield's stories, told to him by a Plains Cree elder named Adam Sakawoo at Battleford, Saskatchewan, a bony specter, as the storyteller called it, kidnapped a Cree woman and flew her to his aerial lodge, where he kept her as his wife.
I like how skeletons can just fly. It's like default that they can fly. It's kind of interesting, though, because one of the things about the Cree, I believe it's the Cree, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Cree, their method of entering the dead was not burial or burning. They would put them up on like a scaffolding up in the sky, like up high, and just leave them there to be exposed to the elements, and wildlife and birds and stuff would pick at them, and that's how they would be disposed of. So it's not that surprising that skeletons became associated with flying for these people groups. If you think about the correlation between them putting the dead up high and then the skeletons being up in the air.
The woman's human husband, who was gifted with powerful medicine, performed a ritual which allowed him to...
Are you talking about Homo naledi, or are you talking about Homo florensis? Florzensis was from the Isle of Flores. They're the ones they call the hobbits. And then Naledi is Africa. Got a loose hair bugging me. And then Naledi is Africa, and they were smaller too. I think they were bigger. They were bigger than Australopithecines, though. I'm not sure.
Back his wife to the Spectre's teepee. As redress for his offense, which he had committed contrary to the advice of his skeletal father, the bony kidnapper taught the husband magic songs which would assist him in hunting and grant him the ability to heal the sick. As payment for these gifts, the husband agreed to offer the bony spectre all of the marrow fat from the first 2 moose that he killed. In another story told by Elder Cummingday, a Plains Cree hunter married
I want to learn some magic Cree songs. That sounds lit.
woodland Cree girl, whose father was reputed to be an evil medicine man. Before allowing his daughter to join her husband's horse-riding people on the plains, the boreal sorcerer convinced his son-in-law to spend a season hunting and trapping with him in the northern bush. While living among his wife's people, the Plains Cree husband incurred the ire of his father-in-law.
I like how foggy it is up there. It looks very eerie, very Sleepy Hollow-esque. This is in Saskatchewan, the boreal forest. I think one of the biggest boreal forests in the world is in Saskatchewan. I know the biggest one in the world is in Siberia, but I think that the Canadian one, which is like maybe second biggest, I'm not sure. There might be a Chinese one that's bigger and a higher elevation. But anyway, I digress.
By spending too much time playing a certain childhood game of which he was inordinately fond, thereby neglecting his hunting duties. As punishment for his indolence, the Woodland Cree Manitou Man, as the storyteller called him, cursed the young man so that he could not kill any game, and forbade his people from feeding him. Heedless of the lamentations of his daughter, who had grown to love her husband, the medicine man gradually starved his son-in-law until he was too weak to move.
We're way over on time. I'm really chatty this morning, though. I've been stopping a lot to chat with y'all. I'm going to speed him up, though.
Whereupon he abandoned him in the bush to die alone. When he was on the brink of death, the Plains Cree husband was approached by a bony spectre, whose arrival was accompanied by a gust of wind, a sound like a gunshot, a whoop, and the words "Hey, hey, hi, hi," whispered on the wind. The skeletal figure, clad
all at the same time,
leather, took pity on the young man and transformed him.
Hey, hey, hi, hi!
He taught the husband how to fly through the air and how to feed himself on melted fat that was offered to him by Cree hunters. The husband was eventually captured by his own relations and nourished back into human form. Armed with powerful medicine he had obtained from his skeletal mentor, the young man tracked down his evil father-in-law and paralyzed him, initiating his slow and painful death by starvation. In a final story told by Adam Sakawu, which has elements in common with the dwarf story told by Cummingday that appears in David Mandelbaum's 1979 treatise on the Plains Cree, a hunter named Crooked Moccasin encountered a bony spectre in a forest meadow. The figure proposed a wrestling match, waging their guns as the prize. He boasted that his own firearm never missed, but said that he wished to obtain a human musket as a gift for his father. After some hesitation, Crooked Moccasin agreed, and the two began to grapple. When he grew tired, Crooked Moccasin tripped.
I like how they just integrate firearms into their folklore, without even considering that firearms were brought over, post-Columbian, right? So, just an observation. A lot of this folklore.
Spectre and threw him to the ground. Pleading that the move was unfair, the Spectre demanded a rematch, to which the hunter agreed. The wrestlers fought 2 more bouts, each of which ended the same way. Finally, the bony spectre conceded defeat and granted Crooked Moccasin his gun, which looked like a piece of driftwood or a sun-bleached stick. With this new weapon, the hunter killed 2 moose, had his wife extract the marrow from their bones, and invited his skeletal rival to feast with him in his teepee. Another Plains Cree.
That's kind of cool having a gun that looks like a stick, though, because could be carrying that and be safe and have the security of having a gun on you without having to worry about getting shot by a cop. Right? If you're a minority, you can't just carry a gun. Even if you can carry a gun, you can't just carry a gun. You're going to get shot. So, obviously, that people of color suffer from that worse than anything. But here in the last couple of years, trans women too have, trans women and trans men for that matter, would be shot for carrying a gun because obviously we're terrorists.
The Flying Skeleton story appears in Reverend Edward Hennecu's posthumous 1973 book, Voices of the Plains Cree, told to him by Chief Thunderchild at the Thunderchild Reserve near Turtleford, Saskatchewan. We have all heard of another small creature, Thunderchild said, and he is not harmless, for he is a Pakakos, the hard luck spirit. The chief proceeded to relate a story told to him by an Onion Lake Cree named Sam Cook, while the two of them were encamped on a creek near Island Lake, at the edge of the boreal forest. "I am used to the open country," Thunderchild said, recalling the evening on which he heard the tale. "And at night, that forest seemed to close in
Have a good one, Zebra.
upon us, primeval, almost unearthly." Then Sam told me his experience with Pakakos, and in that setting, it was impossible for me to doubt them. Many years earlier, at that very same creek, Sam and a Métis hunter named Francois Ladouceur were making camp when they heard someone cackling in the trees. Looking up, the two men saw a Pakakos watching them from a tree branch. It was a small creature, Sam told Thunderchild, like a man in build, but so thin that he seemed all skin and bone. He had a dry stick in his hand, birch, almost 3 feet long, and his queer little face was so full of malice that it angered me, although I felt fear too, and a kind of foreboding. I ran to the wagon for my rifle, but before I could reach it, that shrill, cackling laugh came again, and when I looked, I saw Pakakos flying away without wings. But first he had hurled that stick of birch, and it exploded, with a sound like the report of a gun. And then Pakakos was gone.
So he had he has exploding branches. The other guy had gun branches. So all their weapons and stuff are disguised as just sticks. Love it. I'm a skeleton with a deadly stick.
Thunderchild then repeated another story, told to him by his father's cousin, Masuskapu. While sleeping under a large spruce tree during a hunting trip in the northern bush, Masuskapu was awakened by the sensation of a weight on his chest. Something that moved, he said, was alive.
I'm assuming that Kristen means the Transpositions Discord server there for you, Maya.
Without betraying any awareness of this alarming development, the hunter opened his eyes a crack and saw a small creature perched on his breast. "I knew it was a Pakakos," he told Thunderchild, by that crafty smile on his bony little face. Mustering his courage, he seized one of the creature's legs and held it firmly, intending to bring it back to his main camp. Recognizing that it would not escape on his own, the creature pleaded with Masuskapu, promising to send him 2 moose if he let him go. The hunter accepted the offer and released the creature, which shot up into the air and out of sight. In the morning, the hunter said, "I started back to camp, and as I went, I came upon 3 moose. I killed 2 easily, but I did not shoot at the third." Pakakos had said 2. According to the late Albertan historian Hugh
So the waking up with the creature on your chest is very reminiscent of sleep paralysis and what they call hagging or being hag-ridden. Just to me, that's what it reminds me of. That maybe this person had a hypnopompic state where they interacted with Pakakos, and when they woke up, then they went moose hunting and had a successful hunt. So like, heck yeah, Pakakos. Thank you, dude.
Dempsey, in his 2010 book, Maskabatoon, the bygone Rocky Mountain Cree believed that the Pakakos haunted the Canadian Rockies, describing it as a skeleton figure that punished careless hunters. Another of Dempsey's books, entitled The Vengeful Wife and Other Blackfoot Stories, includes an old Blackfoot tale in which the skeletal ghost of a murdered woman haunted a blood Blackfoot named Heavy Collar. One dark night, while returning home from an unsuccessful horse raid, Heavy Collar had the misfortune to sleep beside the woman's skeleton, which lay in the grass near present-day Lethbridge, Alberta. The following day, the ghost woman, in skeletal form, sat herself beside his campfire and stretched out her bony legs towards him, prompting him to shoot her with his musket. In consequence, the spirit forbade Heavy Collar from returning to the place on pain of death. Many years later, when American whiskey traders established the notorious Fort Whoop-Up nearby, Heavy Collar returned to the forbidden location, where he was killed by an errant bullet fired by a drunken reveler.
She warned you, bro. People don't be listening to prophetic skeletons that come to their campfires, and it shows.
Further to the west, in British Columbia's interior plateau, the Thompson Indians have traditional stories about gaunt human-like creatures said to haunt the North Cascade and Lillooet Mountains. As anthropologist James Tate put it in his 1900 ethnological treatise on the Thompson,
Bye, Patty.
these creatures are said to be of the same size and height as ordinary people, but naked, and of a ghost color. They are very gaunt, the shape of all their bones and joints being visible. Their eyes are very large and round, and protrude from their heads. Like ghosts, they chase people, but are more persistent.
Ooh.
Other native tribes across the country have old tales about skeletal man-eating entities, which were more numerous in the ancient past, which are typically given the name cannibals by anthropologists. One complex iteration of this motif is the Cree and Anishinaabe legend of the Wendigo,
The
a subject which this
Wendigo.
author has explored in the past, and hopes to cover more thoroughly in the future. Finally, on the west coast of Vancouver Island, British Columbia, at Canada's westernmost end, there is an eerie ghost story associated with the wreck of the SS Valencia, a passenger steamer which sank in January 1922 near cliffs known today as the Valencia Bluffs, resulting in the deaths of 136 passengers and crew members. According to T.W. Patterson in his 1983 book, British Columbia Shipwrecks, in the years succeeding the disaster, native fishermen in Barkley Sound sometimes encountered a lifeboat crewed by skeletons, rowing silently through the fog. Whether regarded as omens of impending disaster, preternatural denizens of the North Woods, or apparitions of the restless dead, animated skeletons are little known, yet curiously universal staples of Canadian folklore, the stories of which deserve retelling.
All right. So that was our spooky, scary skeletons. That ran way over from what I usually do for Cryptic Corner. About a half an hour over. surprisingly, which is rare. So this is going to be a long one. And I might have to trim it out, a lot of the banter and stuff, because it's not going to be relevant when I publish this. So that's all right, though. I love it. There is Little People video on here, on Little People in Ontario. I also have a Black Panthers in Ontario. So Ontario's run amok with creatures and supernatural monsters and stuff, apparently. But this was Hammerson Peters covering the Skeleton Spirits of the North, Canada's creepiest legends. I hope you guys had fun with that one. But that's going to wrap up Cryptic Corner for today. And please remember to be kind, take care, and we will see you next time.